Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Lynn and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. I'm so happy to have you guys here. Today I'm going to be talking about my TBR, to be read list for January. Some of this we've already started and some is a hopeful goal. So we'll see what we're reading and talk a little bit about books. If you like that kind of fun slice of life content, books, bullet journaling style, and whatever else, please subscribe to my channel, leave me a comment, like this video, and I hope to see you soon. Alright, so this is my first time doing a TBR video. I'm really excited. I'm going to tell you guys what my goals are for 2021, what books I'm reading, what books I'm going to read, hopefully, this month. And yeah, we'll just hang out and talk books. Because I know you guys are probably book nerds like me. Otherwise, why are you here? Begs the question. So I guess my goal for 2021 is to read 25 books. Last year in 2020, I read, I think, 33. I know this is not the most impressive number compared to some people, but for me, after spending several years just not reading that much, I'm really, really proud of, what I've been accomplishing, how I've been expanding these numbers, and also just expanding the books that I'm reading. I read a little bit of everything, nonfiction, fiction, sometimes poetry, short stories. I like a lot of it. There's some things I don't like. Throw a good murder in there, give me some witches, that all sounds great. Contemporary romance, sure, let's just read it all, that's wonderful. One of my major goals for last year, though, was to make sure that I was reading more diverse authors. I wanted to make sure that, my books weren't just written by white men. And I didn't realize how difficult that would necessarily be. Not difficult, but just how intentional. I didn't realize how intentional I had to be with that. Most of those top seller lists or these top 100 books lists are primarily written by white men and women. Minority authors, even women authors, still just don't make up those lists. And so it takes an intentional effort to make sure that you're reading more diverse authors. So if that is something you're interested in, it's just, something you need to keep an eye out for and look for books that you like that are written by people that, are from marginalized communities. In 2020, I think I read mostly women authors. I had a pretty good mix, I think, of different races. I also had Americans and non-Americans. I am an American myself, for those that don't know or can't hear it in my voice. I had some queer authors, straight authors, and I just want to keep up with that and continue to expand. Not only do I think it's like the right thing, more voices should be heard, but it's also creatively much better. Different people from different life experiences have different stories to tell. I don't want to hear the same story through the same life lens every time. That sounds real boring. But also it really is important to make sure marginalized authors are being read and their stories are being heard, because those stories, that's going to shape tomorrow. The more that we can kind of understand about people that are different than us, the more we can be better allies. So yeah, that's why I kind of went for that, and that's why I want to keep up with it. So I guess let's talk about January and what's coming up. Again, I set my goal at 25 books. Last year I read more than that. This year I'm hoping to read more than that, but it kind of depends. If we end up going back to work in the office, if the pandemic ends and and we end up going out again more, who knows, I might not be reading as much. I also definitely have a lot more games that I want to play this year, and I know that's going to take some time too. But at least 25 books, and I think we can do it. So I have already read one book this year, and that's going to start my January list. So let's talk about it. This is A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow. It's got a beautiful cover. I really, really like this. Written by a Black woman about these two young Black girl characters, and this is in a world in which sirens exist and gargoyles exist, but it's also not unlike our world where there are racial tensions, there are protests, there are cell phones. So it's a really interesting mix of kind of modern day life and fun fantasy. I thought the author did a very good job of approaching anti-racism, racism, and civil rights movements in a really different way, by kind of combining that with, you know, there are these mythical creatures that are not mythical, and this is how they're being treated. And it adds a different twist to a lot of the anti-racism stories that I was reading last year, like The Hate U Give, and a couple other nonfiction books. And it's a different perspective. So the story is about these two girls, Tavia, who is a siren, and in this society, sirens are kind of looked down on, and like people are wary of them because, you know, the siren song can compel people to do things. And she has a sister, adopted sister, best friend sort of, Effie. And Effie may have a little bit of magic in her. I'm not going to spoil anything, but she works at the Ren Fest as a mermaid. So it's really interesting to see kind of how these two girls are going through the world and the things that they're experiencing. There's a little bit of romance, there's a little bit of like family drama. It really has quite a bit of everything, and I really enjoyed it. The one thing about this book that I didn't love so much, and I think it might just be because I wasn't familiar with the subject, there is a certain mythical creature in this, the Eloko, and it was not a creature that I had ever heard of, so I had to do a little bit of research to kind of figure out, you know, what is the author talking about here. I know sirens, I know all those myths, I've heard of gargoyles, mermaids, but the Eloko was something that was brand new to me, and it was cool to learn about it, but I also wish that I had been given more context in the book earlier on about what the like myths of that creature are, to help me understand kind of how that version of that creature is presented. Anyway, I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars on my Goodreads. I really, really liked it. I thought it was great. It was definitely a fresh perspective. It had some great themes of anti-racism, growing up, family connections, and kind of just finding out who you are and learning to accept that. And I really liked it. Okay, this next book is definitely a bit of a left turn. So this one, as you can see, I've got my bookmark from the library in there now, so I'm reading this as we speak. This is A Year of Biblical Womanhood by Rachel Held Evans. And the front cover says, how a liberated woman found herself sitting on her roof, covering her head and calling her husband master. So this is a memoir where this woman, for a year of her life, takes Bible verses and stories and translates them literally into how she's going to live her life for the year. Obviously, this is based on historical context from 2,000 years ago, so it's quite radical compared to the world that we know today. But it's a really interesting book. It is definitely, I would say, from a feminist lens. The author was raised evangelical Christian, I believe, so she's got this lens that she's approaching things, she's approaching this activity through a lens that she's very familiar with. You know, she is a Christian, she goes to church, she follows many of the modern biblical tenets for women, but she's really digging into like the historical context and some more, I would say, fringe groups that are following things like plural marriage groups. But yeah, it's a really interesting read. The author is hilarious. I was really saddened to find out, though, that she had actually passed away very suddenly in 2019 because when I went to look her up on Twitter. She's talking in the book about how she was spending a lot of time on social media. And unfortunately, yeah, she came down with an illness and passed away, which is super sad. But yeah, this book, it's very funny. It's very interesting to kind of think about how like women's roles have changed throughout history, how, you know, different people with different beliefs approach those roles and approach feminism in general. I'm finding this to be a really thought-provoking book, and it's definitely kind of made me think about like what my role is as a woman in my family, in my life, and, you know, whether or not I'm doing things because I'm being told by society that that's the way I should do it, or because I really want to. So I don't know. It's a really interesting book. It's, again, very funny, and I would definitely recommend it regardless of your religious beliefs, because it is very universally understandable and interesting. Okay, this next book we're going to talk about is another book that I have in flight. I'm reading this on audiobook though, and I'm going to go ahead and pop up the cover right here so you can take a look. Okay, this is a long title, so I'm like reading this off of my phone. Okay, so this one is called It Didn't Start With You, How Inherited Family Trauma Shapes Who We Are and How to End the Cycle by Wolynn. So yeah, again, this is another nonfiction book. This one is, I would say, very educationally written. It does feel like a textbook in a lot of ways, but if you have an interest in mental health, trauma, and how those things shape not only us, but potentially the generations beyond, it's quite an interesting read. You hear a lot about experiments in this book on different generations of mice where, you know, one generation is exposed to a trauma and the younger generations, without ever having experienced it, have similar trigger reactions. I personally find mental health education to be very important and very interesting because I have been dealing with depression and anxiety for a very long time. So it's a new way to kind of look at something that I've never thought about before. I don't know if this is a common psychological thought theory or if this is more of a kind of fringe idea. I want to definitely do a lot more research on it, but reading about it is fascinating. Again, I will say this is written in kind of a textbook-ish way. I don't know how else to describe that. It's not narratively written. It's not a memoir. These are the facts. I'm reading a textbook kind of book. So if you're into that, check it out. It's really, really interesting. Hey everyone, Future Sarah here. Just wanted to let you know that this book does push for reconciliation with estranged parents, which is not always the best option. It's not always safe or healthy. So keep that in mind if you do choose to read this book. I do think there's still a lot of value here, but it is a good point to know. Back to the video. Okay, so that is one book we've read, 2 books that are in progress, and my hope is to get at least one more in this month. What's today? We're filming this on the 8th, so I think we can probably get at least one more and then one more started. So this is called The Paper Magician by Charlie N. Holmberg. So I just read Spellbreaker by Charlie Holmberg and I loved it. It was so much fun. The sequel to that comes out in March and I am so ready for it. But this was one of the books that a friend of mine gave me, so I'm really excited to read this one as well. The author creates these really interesting worlds that just kind of approach magicians and magic in a really fresh way. So it's not, you know, the same old stories that you've heard all of the time. So I'm just gonna go ahead and read the back cover because I don't really remember a lot about what this one was about when I shelved it into my want to read pile. Okay. Sienny Twill arrives at the cottage of magician Emery Thane with a broken heart. Having graduated at the top of her class from the Tegas Praff School for the Magically Inclined, Sienny is assigned an apprenticeship in paper magic, despite her dreams of bespelling metal. And once she's bonded to paper, that will be her only magic forever. So yeah, I find these worlds just utterly fascinating. In Spellbreaker, people can either make spells or break spells. You're born with it, you can break them. If you pay for it, you can make them. It's different and it's interesting. So in this world, I guess the magic users can only have like a type of magic they do. So this character can only use paper magic despite, you know, wanting to work with metal. That's really interesting. To me, that means that this is going to be a lot about like your path through life, finding your path, like accepting your path and going after what you want. So really, really interesting. The spells that Sienna learns under the strange yet kind Thane turn out to be more marvelous than she could have ever imagined, animating paper creatures, bringing stories to life via ghostly images, even reading fortunes. But as she discovers these wonders, she also learns of the extraordinary dangers of forbidden magic. An executioner, a practitioner of dark flesh magic, invades the cottage and rips Thane's heart from his chest. To save her teacher's life, Sienna must face the evil magician and embark on an unbelievable adventure that will take her into the chambers of Thane's still beating heart and reveal the very soul of the man. Yes, so again, really interesting. Also, these books are quite dark, I would say, but they're also very chaste. Spellbreaker had no swearing. It had some violence. There was like a little bit of sexual tension, but just enough to like be interesting, and it made sense for being in like the 1800s in England. So yeah, I think these are definitely really good books that you can share with younger readers as well. But yeah, that's The Paper Magician. That's on my TBR list, and I'm very interested to read it. Okay, and the last one, who knows if we'll get to this in January. Hopefully we do. Don't know if we'll finish it. Maybe. Time will tell. This is the book that I just got in my Once Upon a Book Club box. Unboxing video will be linked somewhere up here. And this is called The Ravens, so I'm not going to talk too much about this because you've got a whole video about it up there. But yeah, this is by Kass and Danielle Paige, and I believe it is from the point of view of two different protagonists who are both going out for a leadership role in a sorority where all of the girls are witches. But I guess there is some kind of dark magic that happens on campus and they need to put aside their differences, come together, and fight evil. Again, this one's called The Ravens, which is the name of the sorority in the book. It seems very dark, it seems witchy, it seems like it's got some great girl drama. I am into it. So that is my plan for January. Those are the books that I'm gonna read. Let me know if you guys have read any of these. Just leave me a comment down below. Tell me if you've got any favorites, if there's any that you're like, maybe be prepared for anything in any of these books. I want to hear from you guys. Let me know what you're reading too. I'd really appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up, if you subscribe to my channel, and hopefully I'll see you guys again soon. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day.